I did go to the Chatham County GOP Convention, and it was exciting. I have never been involved in politics, and November 3rd rolled around, and or November 4th rolled around, and I was like, what just happened? And then after that, January 20th rolled around, and I was like, what just happened? Because I guess I'm just of the mindset in my conservative thought process, right always comes about. Right is always, justice comes around, right will prevail over wrong. And it was a very, it was a cellular feeling that not just myself had, but I have thousands and thousands and thousands of people, because I have an international online wellness business. So thousands of people that have said to me, what happened? What's going on? And we all just knew viscerally something wrong happened. And so in my quest, after January 20th, I'm like, well, what can we do? What action can we take? I come from a Marine father, federal agent, Marine father. I call him the dictator. And I was like, I wasn't. He doesn't really remember. But we were a conservative family. And so I could say, sure, I'm just surrounded by only conservatives and we didn't understand, but that's not the case. I am in touch with people not even from our country, and I have very good friends that fall middle of the line, and people are asking what is wrong. And the only thing that had been stated repeatedly was, we have to get involved locally. What is happening? We basically, I was the first to say, well, it's our fault. We're complicit. We have no idea how you even get on the ballot. We think, in our conservative nature, we're doing our due diligence. We go and we vote, and we're proud Americans, and you win some, you lose some. But this was a very different feeling, and it really was alarming and soul stirring. And so I set about the task to learn everything I could learn about politics. So from November 4th through now, but even before that, I crash coursed history and elections and asking all of my relatives and, literally just studying, which led me to wanting to get involved locally, since that's what everyone was saying we needed to do. We have to get involved locally. We can't just keep depending on our votes our voices being represented by the person that we think is our representative, because we're just taking it literally. We go into a poll and we just take for granted Democrat, Republican, and vote for the person. In that quest to get involved locally, I discovered that there's a Chatham County Republican Party. Well, I'm from Chatham County, and I've lived here most of my life, and I've always voted conservative. And it made me curious. Why have I never, and I'm a businesswoman, and I've been in the community in healthcare for 20 years. And I thought, why have I never been recruited? Why did I not even know there was a local Republican Party that I could join? So I called them up and I start asking questions and I join. In the meantime, where I really couldn't get a grasp on what the local party was doing, I had other friends that said, you should meet some people that have been teaching about the Constitution, and they're feeling like you're feeling. Can I introduce you? And so I started going to their meetings, and it was wonderful. I was so glad that I had done studying on my own, but truly in these meetings, it really just brought everything into an action state. Here's what we can do. Here's what's coming up. We're in a prime position. We're 2022 elections are coming around. It's the perfect time to jump head first rather, and learn, trial by fire. So in all of that enthusiasm, I joined the local CCRP, Chatham County Republican Party. This was in March. In March 20th, we're having a precinct caucus, and the first elected position in the hierarchy I was taught is a precinct chair. I'm like, I'm gonna do that. And then I found out that the executive board is voted on for this Chatham County Republican Party is voted on every 2 years. I'm like, well, I'm gonna do that. I have 30 years of business experience that I can offer. That's how I can pay back. I, haven't necessarily or ever been in politics until this 5-month crash course that I've done. but I do have business skills, and I do know how to recruit, and I know how to be profitable in a business. And so I was like, that is my service. That's what I can do. Now, I will admit, in my naivety, I heard, or how it translated in my head, that every 2 years, the Chatham County Republican Party votes for a new executive board. How that translated to me was that every 2 years, it's new people on the board. I did not realize that people wanted to so tightly hold on to the positions. I just thought it would be, of course, term limits. like you just move on to the next people in the community want to serve. And so each thing, my first experience with the Chatham County Republican Party was on March 20th. And they just kept saying, like the leaders, there were, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 people that seemed to be doing all of the talking. And they just kept saying, this is the most people we've ever had. Wow, this is a lot. And they were overwhelmed. So listen, growing pains are tough. I've started businesses from the ground up. I've taken over businesses to turn them around. It's not pleasant. Growing pains can be difficult. So of course, my attitude was like, well, they'll get through it. We'll figure it out. It was hugely disorganized, but again, they stated a multitude of times about the growing pains they were having. So in all of that, I discovered that, okay, so we will now be officially delegates because not enough people came to fill all of the delegate spots for the county convention, which would be coming up in April. And so that we could all come back and vote on the executive board. Again, I still didn't realize that the board doesn't change out. I really thought every 2 years new people would take over those positions. So I've learned a lot. And let me just fast track this. We're all delegates. We come back on the 17th. We're excited. I guess I should tell a little bit about my personal story, which you do have in our appeal. I am Exhibit C and U, I believe. But I asked on March 29th, I emailed Don Hodges and Carl Smith. Actually, I think I just emailed the CCRP headquarters, like from the website, and said, I'm so excited. I'm a newly elected delegate and precinct chair, and I want to offer myself as a party officer because I read in the CCRP bylaws that that's what you had to do. So then I said, it's my understanding that the delegate list has already been turned into the state and that anyone running for party office may have access to that list. I needed to know if people would even want me to run. Like I needed to know if my skill set would be what we wanted as a party. So I got a bunch of runaround, which you also have in those exhibits. And I finally got a message back from the vice chair telling me that they were still finagling with it. This was like March 30th, maybe March 30th. March 30th, and that it took so much work, and they all have full-time jobs and families, and these are volunteer positions. If I was told that one time, I have to admit to you, I was told that 15 times, and everything was exasperating. It's how it felt like, how dare you ask this of me? And I even responded, said, no, I'm not asking you to do anything. I'm happy. I will stop by the office. I'll just Xerox it. Like, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to mail anything. And it was no. And then it was, I'll get it to you when it's ready. So in the meantime, I never did, that was the end of that communication, March 30th. That's the last time I heard from them. In the meantime, I kept going to the educational classes and I asked about, so I see that there's a nomination from the floor possibility, which I was told, yes, that's true. And I was being advised also by other counties that were sharing their experience at their county conventions, because at this point, now I'm reaching out to try to learn how local politics work and things like that. Or really not even local politics. I just wanted to be involved with other conservative-minded people. I just wanted to make sure that my circle consisted of conservatives. The long and the short of it is that I had no communication. So the week of the county convention, which would have been April 17th, on April 15th, I emailed them. So this is 15 or 16 days after I was told they would get the list to me. And said, I've not heard from anyone. Is there anything I need to do before Saturday? As I shared with you on multiple occasions, I plan to run for party office. here's a brief resume. I don't really know what you would need, but you know, is there anything else I need to know? No response, no response. I emailed the next day, no response. I emailed the next day. So now we're at Friday, April 16th, no response. Friday, April 16th at 9:30 at night, I received a text message. I did not text anybody. I received a text message through an app called Signal from Don Hodges saying, "Hi Kelly, man, we've been so busy all week. Basically, hope you're doing well." And that was the end of that. I showed up on April 17th, and it was very authoritative. There was I think the meeting started with a lot of gavel banging. Someone tried to ask a question, like even kind of before the meeting started, and Don Hodges hit this set the tone for the meeting. He hit the gavel and he said, "I have the floor. You don't have the floor. When I'm speaking, you may not speak." And I was like, okay. It wasn't me that was asking a question, but that sets the tone if that tells you anything. Obviously, the meeting did not go well. The assembly was trying to voice their wishes and their will, and we weren't allowed to vote. We didn't vote on the executive board. We didn't vote on the delegate list. I was presented with a list that had my name on it for district and state, but I haven't received anything since. It's not voted on, so I don't know if I'm still going to district and state. And it's just such a disheartening feeling to feel like my vote completely got stolen from me on November 3rd, on January 5th, and then again at a convention of a local Republican Party that I paid to be at and was not allowed to vote.
I was very excited to go to the Chatham County Convention. I haven't been involved, and we were looking, after the election, we were looking to get really involved. We just knew we needed to take some responsibility for what was going on, and so we tried many avenues to get involved with the Republican Party more. And originally we had tried to get in contact with the party, and we didn't really have much success in doing that. And so we tried several other organizations, and we heard about some other side groups that were getting together, and they seemed to have the same values. We wanted conservative people representing us in Chatham County. So we were just excited to be there. I had never been a delegate before, so it was fun. But when we got there, we'd already heard there was going to be some turmoil, not allowing people to get nominated from the floor and kind of restricting people that could get involved. So what I didn't realize is that to get conservatives into the Republican Party, we were going to have to go against our own people, and that did not sit well. So I was really hoping that when we got to this convention that it was all going to be just real positive. And it was not positive. I had spoke to one of the chairmen before, and I had gotten an email response back, and we had talked about maybe taking nominations from the floor, and the message I got back was that we were unpatriotic, we were unchristian, we were just rotten, terrible people. We were like just stunned that this is the response we got. Also, that we were not to do a recording, we could not film, and there was going to be a police officer there. I'm like, okay, so now we're being threatened. So obviously, my excitement over the convention had started to wane a bit. So when I did get there, the first thing we did is the gentleman he was being nominated himself for a position. And he had said he was going to be the parliamentarian, which was really odd, but I'm not that strong on the rules. And so I'm like, okay, there seems to be a lot of turmoil with this, but this didn't seem logical, a conflict of interest there. And as soon as the convention started and people started asking questions, and then they'd say, wait a minute, there's a problem. I guess the point of order is the correct term for that. They were just shut down, and just asked them, basically, they were told to sit down and shut up, was literally the words that come out. And of course, I'm dumbfounded that this is going on. It really came very clear that this was a one-sided event. The people that have been so excited, these hundreds of people that have not been part of this party before, came forward to be involved, and they were just shut out. Unless you towed the line that these legacy people have, then if you didn't toe the line, you're just not welcome. So it was disappointing. I hopefully was going to be a district chair, and that didn't get voted on, and so we're just kind of left in limbo. And it was just a huge disappointment, and I'm just saddened and disheartened that we have to face our own people to try to get the representatives that we want. So I just really would love to start over and say, hey, how can we get some good, honest, fair people in here that's going to see us through to the next convention? When I started meeting with some of these groups, we were excited to get together. We knew that the bylaws said that we could go ahead and get started in our district. So we all some of the folks that were in our district, we kind of met and we decided that we wanted to move forward, but we of course had to select a district chair. But then we found out that one of the ladies in District 1, she had started some preliminary meetings, and she had gotten basically rebuffed and said, you can't do any of that. You have to do everything through the CCRP. So we said, okay, well, let's just wait. Let's not do anything. Let's wait until we get to the convention and we can elect a district chair, and then we'll get started. But we were ready to go. Everybody's eager. Let's go. How can we get involved and get some more voters in here? So it's just, again, it's just disheartening, disappointing, and to have that opportunity taken away, and we're just stalled at this point.
Just a couple of things that stood out. First and foremost, at the beginning of the meeting, when Carl was appointed as parliamentarian by Mr. Hodges, there was an outburst in opposition to this, and
Why was there an outburst?
Oh, he was one of the candidates for the executive committee himself. So it was a clear conflict for him to serve as parliamentarian. But that outburst was largely ignored, and just, they just continued to move along. Several points of order were called from the audience. Nothing really acknowledged. Just a lot of people trying to make order of what was happening, because candidates had just been marched up to the stage. These are the people who are running. No one else is being considered, basically. And so there was some opposition to that. And then there was a call for nominations from the floor. Don said that would not be allowed. I was running for assistant secretary, although I had not been granted an interview. I was told that I had not met a deadline for an interview, but a resume had been sent in. I just didn't receive any type of information about a deadline, because it was my understanding, as according to state rules, that an interview could take place up until the convention. Well, we thought certainly that they would be able to, we would be able, according to Robert's Rules of Order, to call nominations from the floor, but that was not granted. I saw a friend after everything had transpired and the meeting was just adjourned abruptly. We were all sort of leaving, and I met one of my colleagues who was very excited about being involved now as a new member in the Republican Party. She's a teacher also, and she was asking me what happened. She didn't understand what had just happened, and I kind of told her my view was that there were a group of people who had been running the show pretty much, and they wanted to continue to do so, and they didn't want to allow, or they apparently did not want to permit anyone else to be involved. If I felt alone, I probably would feel like I didn't have any hope of being successful, but there are lots of people who want to be involved, and I think I'm going to stick with it. I'm certainly going to stick with it, but you have to have support. You can't do this by yourself.
I've been a lifelong conservative, and I recently moved back to the Savannah, Georgia area. When I tried reaching out to the local Republican Party so I could get involved and help, I found nothing. Finally, I was able to connect and attend the Chatham County caucus, where I saw Carl Smith nominate himself as chairman take a vote and not bother to pay any attention to any of the no votes and not allow a division count. After the caucus was over, I left a voicemail because I wanted to run for Chatham County Executive Board Secretary, requesting the delegate list. Never heard anything. Finally sent several emails, and at 6 o'clock on the 16th, 6 o'clock in the evening, I finally received the email list, and the county convention was on the 17th. We were told that we had to send in a resume and be interviewed with an interviewing committee. I didn't find any of that in the county bylaws. I did see something in the Georgia State GOP bylaws, but that was specifically for state executive committee. Nothing for district, nothing for county. But I leaped through their hoops for them, and they basically sidelined me. They said, hey, can you show up for an interview at this time? I said no, but I can attend at this time or that time. Never heard back from them until after they had done their interviews. I guess they ended at 1, and about 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the evening, Dawn sent me an email. Oh, just now saw your message. Sorry. I did reach back out to them and did do an interview later on where they tried to tell me that all the executive board committee members were expected to volunteer at least 20 hours a week. They tried to scare me off. I said, well, I guess it's a good thing that I am self-employed, so I can flex my schedule as need to be. I had a phone call with Don Hodges where he offered me if I would not run, if he would give me the position of head of voter registration. I declined, saying that as secretary, I could also help with voter registration. Then I had a phone call with Carl Smith. That was one of the slimiest, backroom, swampy deals. I was already feeling pretty polluted after talking with Don, but Carl I was clawing for air. He wanted to know what Don had offered me, and I told him. So they obviously were not communicating. Then, and another thing, Carl was not on the nominating committee. He was overreaching right then and there. So Carl offered me, he says, well, what if I offer you assistant secretary position? Now, they'd already come out with the list with somebody in there from the nominating committee in that. I told him, well, if I'd wanted to run for assistant secretary, I would have run for assistant secretary. I didn't tell him all the slimy things that were running through my mind at him. I've expressed some of those earlier. I then told him that he said, well, I guess you qualified, you're able to get the delegate list, and I guess you can go up and you can be nominated. But this is from somebody that's not on the nominating committee. And then I said, well, we're all working together. We're trying to get rid of the communists and socialists and Marxists, out of the United States, and we're starting here with Chatham County, and I hope that no matter who wins, we're all going to work together as a team. And the vitriol and the filth that came out of his mouth, the hatred that he said, well, there's going to have to be a lot of apologizing and begging for forgiveness before I will work with anybody in the group that we were studying with. I had a group of people, we were studying the bylaws, we were learning Robert's Rules of Order, because this is all new to us. We wanted to do what was right and correct and proper. And he was really very nasty, and that has been recorded, and that has been sent to the state GOP as well. So basically, I leaped through all their hoops. At the county convention, we walked in. I knew that I had earned a place to get on board, and that several of my other friends that had been reading and studying the bylaws expected to be nominated from the floor. The reason they did not go through all of the hoops. Some of them were not even called for interviews, and some of them had already been told and sidelined before they even sent in their resume, don't do it, we're not going to nominate you. So we knew we had a legal right through Robert's Rules of Order to be nominated from the floor. When Don appointed Karl as parliamentarian, I stood up and I was in the front row and said, point of order. And Don said, Miss Sarah, nope, we're not going to have that. And I still continued and said, you cannot appoint Karl as parliamentarian. One, he's not neutral. Two, he's a candidate for one of the positions. I had found them a neutral parliamentarian. I had gone in and had done research, and this was all new to me with a parliamentarian, but I talked to people and I found the name of a wonderful man, and I had talked with him, and he was willing to be the neutral parliamentarian, but Don and Karl shut him out. My understanding is they told him if he wasn't going to side with them, then they didn't want him. So this was, once again, slimy, backroom, swampy stuff by the leadership of the Chatham County Republican Party. Throughout the convention, I watched as Don Hodges was completely unfamiliar with bylaws and Robert's Rules of Order. When somebody says point of order, and that is the only time you can interrupt the chairman because it's valid and you want to remain in order. So when someone says point of order, the chairman is required by bylaws and by Robert's Rules of Order to acknowledge that. Don Hodges did not do that. And instead we had him referring to Karl, who was an invalid parliamentarian, who in turn Karl was giving his opinion and telling people off and being very rude, and then going, I'm going by law such and such. But he wouldn't read the law. And there were many very orderly points of order. It's just that there were so many trying to get there to go, we just want this to be fair, open, and honest. And yes, we are allowed to have nominations from the floor. And I had Melinda Loomis, I was actually up there on stage. I had other people going, what's going on? Why didn't they do this? Go through what they wanted us to, because they didn't want to be sidelined like I was. Melinda Loomis was telling Don to call the police on people calling for points of order. Then she told him to adjourn. If Karl Smith and Don Hodges had any kind of experience and intelligence with the bylaws and Robert's Rules of Order, they would have merely recessed and allowed the district chairman to be elected and allowed the delegates to be voted on. But instead, they adjourned it, and that left our Chatham County Republican Party adrift. And now we as members are doing our best. We've appealed to district, we've appealed to state. We need to have our delegates appointed or voted on, and we need to be allowed to have our district chairs voted on. So in just a couple of weeks, we have the district convention. So we need to get that done. And it's time for new leadership, because what we've had is unacceptable.
Well, first of all, I wanted to kind of give you a background on me. I'm a lifetime conservative Republican. Was born and raised in a conservative family. And obviously, this year has been, or actually ended 2020, the election cycle and all that sort of stuff, and everything that went on. I kind of, as a conservative Republican, I really felt that I wanted to just be more a part of what the process is and what's going on. So I went ahead and became an active member of the Republican Party in Chatham County, and to become more involved, to just be a part of this. And going into the convention on the 17th of April, I had, my hopes were kind of high as far as hoping to make a change. And what I got, the feeling I got when we got there was anything but that. Well, the strange thing when we got there early Saturday morning was, we looked in and it seemed like they were having a pre-meeting Carl Smith and Don Hodges seemed to be having a pre-meeting before anything even got involved, and it was a real tense feeling. It felt like that they were preparing to control the meeting, which is actually what they attempted to do as things got as we got in and got registered and sat down, and they quickly basically told the room that that it was going to run the way they wanted to run it, which is what I figured was going to happen anyway, because when I had a chance to talk to Carl Smith at the caucus the month before, he flat out told me that he writes the rules and he makes the rules. So I didn't figure it was going to be run by any Chatham County or state Republican rules. It was the way it was going to be run.
There were people that were there that knew the rules and were calling out different procedural things. What happened when they did that?
Well, the crowd was very knowledgeable about what should have gone on, but the problem was that wasn't the way that Carl Smith and wanted things to go. And when Don Hodges when there was any question about rules or anything going on, Don quickly deferred to Carl, and as they saw the whole meeting getting out of hand, they quickly put a stop to it. And I think they realized as they looked around the room as things were going on, is they didn't have that room. I mean, that room was probably at least 2/3, if not more, new members, people that were more along the lines of conservative patriots as opposed to the old guard that's been there for a long time. And I feel in my heart that they called it and pulled the plug on the whole thing because they knew that they were going to lose the party if they let it go.
It's Mark Armstrong. I'm a Cuban American. I am an American citizen. I've been in this country since 1968. I haven't seen anything like this, what I saw at the convention, since I lived in Cuba, where there are no elections, where your voice is canceled, where you cannot have an opinion, a voice of your own. This was the worst day for me, being here so long in the States and working so hard to realize the American dream. These people are not doing things for our interest. They're doing it for their interest. And I believe that they belong in the other party, not the Republican Party. Chatham County Republican Party members, Carl Smith and Don Hodges, would be better served in the Democratic Party, not ours. This is disgusting. And I think that they should be removed. I think that you might want to remember that this is a grassroots group, the Savannah Freedom Exchange, that they are trying to make things better, and we're getting a lot of resistance from, seems like, the state. And there needs to be a change in power, because whoever is there is not doing a good job and does not have our best interest in mind. The convention was horrible, and it should be redone again, because people need to have been voted from the floor, not selected. Carl said, and Don also said, that this is the way we always done it. This is the way we're gonna do it. This way has always worked. And that is not doable anymore. So changes need to be made. and they're going to have to come from the top because the bottom is soiled. And whoever is at the top needs to go. Thank you.
So it's so nice to be able to speak with you all. My name is SARA THOMPSON, and I have a few little objects to show you. One is this Constitution Alive workbook. This is where we started as a group, and we started meeting at the Trump office back this summer, and our mission was to retain and restore our freedoms within Chatham County, and to use all legal means possible to train, equip able-bodied citizens. Our end state has always been to have honorable statesmen at all levels of government representing us. And now I understand how important it is at the party level to have wise, effective, ethical leaders at the party level, because they are the conduit through which every qualifying person wanting to run for office must pass by and through those gates. Our goal in Chatham County is to train many, many people. In fact, we are already excited to have a class where maybe even 100 people can learn about what it's like to run for office, and we can compete and race one another and defeat the Democrat encroachment. Our county has been politically raped over the past 2 years. Since the very beginning of my arrival here in Savannah in July of 2019, I watched our mayor be defeated soundly with very little involvement of the party. So here we are, trying to help restore the party. Here's another object. This is a little logo that was created by my daughter, Chatham Patriots, and these are 3 of the items on the Georgia crest: Constitution, wisdom, and justice. And then this, near and dear to my heart, this flyer that we made to inform the delegates at the Chatham County Convention of who's running from the floor. Interestingly, this is more information that any of the delegates received about the people who were run by the nominating committee. In fact, most of the people who were run by the nominating committee were relatively unknown by the delegates, but we were supposed to vote for them. So in a nutshell, I just want to share with you how I do appreciate the state's appointing a review committee. That was done on April 21st, and we are notified of that by John White. Interestingly, the moment of that notification, that name was very familiar because his name had been invoked many times by our party to rule over us that we could not have open nominations from the floor and that we must follow certain steps in order to even have a chance to be voted on. Those were, in fact, guidelines and procedural recommendations based on the convention plan. At that time, they were of no governing authority whatsoever, but they were held over us very, how could I say it, in an intimidating, forceful manner. And it is quite grievous that that happened. At the convention, we were asked to vote around minute 48 on an agenda, standing rules, and committees. And after further looking, and I'm sure you're very thankful to us for providing you the audio and full transcript of the event, that was a motion made but never completed. So we managed to not vote for rules that we didn't have, which was so wonderful. I'm so thankful we did not. We were not given that in any form whatsoever. So there are no standing rules or governing anything that prevents us from being nominated from the floor. And I would say us, but really it's those 8 people. I am not running for anything. My heart is in seeing this county be restored fully to the hands of wise, conservative people. And I've done this as a public service because I love my community and I love our country, and everything I do comes from the continuance of an oath I made when I was 21 years old to support and defend the Constitution of this country. I didn't know what it meant at that time, but I now know it is more important. It is the most important oath I made. I would like to highlight that last week when we were in a Zoom call regarding so many of these issues, I held up this appeal. And this contains many of the issues that we are discussing tonight. I held up this appeal, and 2 of the 3 people on the review committee did not even have the appeal. How can you review a matter of such importance to so many people? We have 53,000 people in Chatham County who voted for President Trump, who are relying on this party to do their work, do the work that they are called to do through the Georgia GOP organization. And how can they rely on us if procedures aren't followed. You're a domestic nonprofit corporation and you have a lot of power, and we just hope that you can see the opportunity you have to restore the rights of the delegate assembly here in Chatham County. There have been many harms to our delegate assembly. I'll never forget hearing so many people saying that we appeal the ruling of the chair. We appeal the ruling of the chair. And that was a cry for help. That in that moment, the only decision that could have been made that was right was to hold a debate and then to call for a vote. And in fact, we didn't really even have to appeal the ruling of the chair. There was no rule in place. There was no rule that prevented us from being nominated from the floor. It should have been something that happened naturally after the nominating committee presented their people. The chairman should have called for nominations from the floor. There should have been no matter whatsoever to have nominations from the floor. And instead, we were groveling and begging for any sort of hearing, and rules being stated that were not rules, but they were opinions, and they were invoking the state parliamentarian and things that were not relevant to our assembly. It was such a sad moment to be sitting next to one of the highest and most powerful attorneys in the city of Savannah, while his voice was very clear in communicating to the chairman, and he was our spokesperson at that time, who had the most clear, pronounced voice, and to be totally rejected. At the moment when there was the most concern, Carl Smith said, well, you could use a 2/3 vote and you could overrule anything, and that's true. If it was a standing rule, that could be either suspended or amended at that moment. If we wanted to, rescind or amend, if we wanted to suspend any standing rule, we only needed a majority vote. But in that moment, we needed nothing. We needed nothing but to just be accepted as people, members, full members of the party. We had given them thousands of dollars, around $5,000 in dues. We were very legitimate. We had all attested to the party. We were delegates. We were precinct chairmen. We were 100% legitimate. And we, instead of being welcomed and allowed to be voted on, we were rejected. And so many other things could have been done, as SARA LAIN-MONEYMAKER has said about the recess and continuing. But I just cry out for help, for order and discipline of this party. If this party has rules and bylaws, and they must be followed, to join an organization expecting that we will be abused and that our rights would be crushed, and along with that, the rights of the entire Trump voting populace of Chatham County, one of the most beautiful counties in this state, this would happen is a travesty. And I hope that all of you will be concerned about the rights of all Republican voters all over the state of Georgia, and that you will immediately give us a new convention. And I do have a special request that it would be done by neutral parties. There has been so much harm caused, and I ask that it would be done with neutral parties and only people who were in attendance on April 17th, and that anybody who would like to be nominated, either by the floor or from the committee, would be given a fair shake. Thank you very much for listening. I appreciate you.